not Muslim, okay, we'd love your questions first, okay? We have left it deliberately open, mashallah, the Sheikh, and I've left it open because I'm a person of no knowledge, but the Sheikh has kindly left it open for you to ask what's missing. So please, put your hands up or write down a question, and we're happy to hear them now, okay, inshallah, and then we will have some sisters and then and brothers together, okay, inshallah.
Okay, so inshallah, how the question is going to work is you're going to put your hands up, as Sister Lauren said. So if you're a non-Muslim, yay, you're winning. So you'll be given a preference, inshallah, and Brother Habib will go to you with his mic, and you can ask your question, and inshallah, two panelists will try to answer your question to the best of their ability. Okay, go for it. Question? No question. Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, I've got a question for you, Lauren.
Yes.
Firstly, I wanted to say I really enjoyed your talk, so thank you. But about your point about women and the army and how women and men being equal but different, I guess.
Yeah.
There are some women who are capable of being in the army without being injured as such. And by excluding all women, isn't that applying the concept that all women are equal to each other?
What's your name?
Staff, sorry.
Thanks, Steph. Okay, so without focusing too much on the army, because that was more of an example and they have their own rules and regulations there, I think the wider point that we're touching upon is equal but different. And I want to raise some of the practicalities of living as a Muslim wife. For example, if you're married and you're not Muslim, in the modern context, you will pay half the rent, and it's an expectation because everybody's working. Now, a Muslim man and wife, most likely they're both working now as well if you live in the UK. At some point, maybe the wife, God willing, will have some time off with the children when they're small, and may even homeschool. We're more likely to homeschool proportionally. But we're also equally likely to work during periods of our life. So in the non-Muslim context, you'll both pay half the rent, you'll both pay half the food, you'll both pay half the school expenses, you'll both work similar hours. Proportionally, all of the studies show the woman will still do the majority of the housework, she'll still do the majority of the childcare, you'll still take the majority of the school runs, and all of those things on board. So effectively, and I've done this, you're living the life of a man with all those responsibilities and bills. In fact, I was the main income earner. And you're still, because the girls, the children are closer to you, you're still going to be one to wipe the nose, call the doctor and go to the school run and go to the dentist. And you've got to pay the same amount of money, and it's really exhausting and stressful. Now, I'm not saying there's less stress in modern life, because everybody's living here on parity. But Islamically, let me give you the example. As a Muslim wife, my rights are this. I can work, my husband can't ask me for money. He has a responsibility in Islam. Deal with it, young brothers. And I do mean deal with it, because the women here need to know our rights. Sisters, don't be soft with this. Allah has given you rights. The man earns the money. He has to pay your rent, your food, for the children, for all of your needs, and what's yours is yours. Sheikh, tell me when I'm wrong. He will say, I'm looking. What's mine is mine, what's mine is mine, and what's my husband is mine. True or not true? He's going to don't say anymore. You've given away too much. So alhamdulillah. So suddenly, I can be in a position where the husband is the main provider, and he takes that stress. In reality, I'll still have a job, but I can do with my money what I want. It just takes that strain down a bit. In reality, if I don't have to work, I can say, I'm going to take a year, 5 years, 2 years off with my kids and give them that bonding time. And all the studies show that's better for them. So that's what I mean, equal but different. We both have these rights to pursue what's best for us intellectually and in a soulful way, but he has rights that he has to give me as well, and these are not discussed enough, and I want the young sisters here to know that, and I hope the next generation of brothers are going to be good at giving the women that, inshallah. Otherwise, women leave Islam, because without us being treated well, then Islam can be used by men to oppress, and any regime can be used by men to oppress women. Sorry if I've said too much, given away too much. Is it correct, inshallah?
Yes.
I think it's important.
Yeah, definitely. I have no issues at all with that. Whatever a woman is giving into the home in terms of income and earning, it is from her own heart. She doesn't have to do that. It is not her duty to look after the home, and bring food on the table. She can do it out of her willingness to do so, but not as a duty, definitely. And I don't believe any of the scholars have any different opinion. I don't want to say any more. We can say even what we discussed before, but let us just pass it this time, because you go to London, I stay here, and then I get all these complaints, But yes, definitely, I think, dear brothers, you need to look after your wives, you need to look after your mothers, you need to look after your daughters. Please understand Islam in the right way, because if you do, then you create a better community and a better society and a better environment where we all dwell, men and women.
This week is about breaking down misconceptions with Islam. But I wonder whether, as part of that, there's also sort of misconceptions around Western culture. So I was particularly intrigued and slightly concerned by your example of young women throwing up in the gutter. I'm aware it happens a lot, but to point out that a university of 13,000 people, we do not flood Guildford with vomit every weekend. So I think that it's try to avoid it when you try and label large. I'm sure it will come up with regards to Islam later on in the week about using minorities to brand entire groups of people. But I think you should be cautious about doing the same thing.
I want to thank you for that. What's your name?
Nick Booth.
Nick Booth, thank you. Barakallah feek, Nick, and I'll tell you why I thank you, because it's a really good reminder. As was told me a few years ago, when ASBOs were in fashion under the government, that there were more young people who were volunteering than had ASBOs. And if you read all the front pages, you'd think, oh, they're all, that wasn't my aim, but it definitely came across like that. And of course, the student body is a hard-working body. And it's not the majority that are doing that. So that wasn't what I meant, and thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it, Nick. Thank you. Yes.
I'm Paulina. I've got a question in the chat. I would just apologize for not knowing that, but I was thinking, you were saying about the importance of a woman in respect to being a daughter, a wife, and a mother. I was thinking maybe what the Quran says about a woman without any respect to other people, just her. Because I think it's quite important in the sense that we have more and more women that maybe don't find husbands, maybe don't want husbands, don't want children, and maybe they need more of an answer who they are themselves without respect to other people.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the first two items. I said the status of women as humans, and we could talk about that, for a long time, and also her status as a believer, as a Muslim. So she definitely is a daughter. So the other two items is a mother or a wife. Yeah, you're right. Women can be not a wife or a mother. So I tried to look. She's also a sister. She could be a sister, and she could be also a lone child. So, but also as a sister, she has rights. So you asking me as a human what are her duties, or?
No, maybe if I was more thinking what the actual Quran says about the woman, but without respect to other people. So without being a reference to other people, so just her, maybe not as a sister either.
Yeah, okay. I mean, in this case, a woman is honored as a human because humans are being honored over and above all other creation. So she has that status, and also as a believer, as a Muslim, because the Quran is all about Islam, and it talks. So it is honored as a human, whoever she is, and then she is a Muslim, and I did mention that her duties. She has duties, and she will be rewarded and respected for that within the society and in the sight of the Lord. So she has that as much as anybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to add to what the Sheikh is saying. Never in history have women or men been seen in isolation until now, and I think this is a really dramatic change in the structure of our society. So we see governments now investing not in communities but in single-person apartment flats. Spending money not on building new towns and improving our communal spaces, but on getting these high-rise, these expensive flats for wealthy individuals who are going to pass through. This is a new phenomenon in human history. So if the Quran sees the woman in the context of society, that's because as human beings we're social creatures. But I take your point. We're not necessarily going to be wives all the time. And we may not ever be mothers, but we will always have been a daughter. And we will, and we will always have the respect, and most of women will always be a mother. So these two in the context of society, if they are revered, that in itself is a portrait of protection. Khadija, peace be upon her, may Allah be pleased with her, was the Prophet's first wife, peace be upon him. Khadija, her name was. She was 25 years older than the Prophet. So he was a young man and she was older. And she was running an import-export business that was the biggest in Arabia at the time. So what you have is a young man who had not yet been given prophecy by God, who was known as a trustworthy human being and much loved by his community, but with no inherited wealth to talk of, working for I'm not going to denigrate her, but if we're talking a woman who was making her business known for its success in the region, he worked for her. And she spotted something so beautiful in him that she actually, through someone who worked for her, made the proposal to the young man. And then he said, wow, okay, this is an amazing person. I'd love to be married to her. And it was Khadija, peace be upon her, who floated Islam financially through its first years. So through this, we have so many undoings of cultural errors that have crept in since. Women can work, women can be successful, but she chose to give the money. That's a really essential thing. It was an option, it was done with love. And for that, the Prophet, peace be upon him, no, not for that, for everything about her, for the love that they had. He loved her beyond when she died. And they had 6 children together, is that right? 6 children. But she did loving things. This amazing woman, and I love to look at this amazing woman, the biggest businesswoman of her time in that region. She made sandwiches for her husband when he went away on spiritual retreat and would climb a mountain on her own to take them to him. So aren't human relationships about love? Aren't they about looking after one another? And what blessings God will give if we look after one another. Imagine being a wealthy businesswoman and saying, I humble myself because I love that man, not my husband, that man so much I'm going to climb a mountain with some sandwiches to make sure he's okay on spiritual retreat. So these are the kinds of loving relationships that Islam draws us to. Are we going to implement them in our lives, inshallah?
Thank you. And another one, sorry, the thing was on my side. I think you said just the sentence that you dropped and then you moved to another topic, and I would like you to elaborate maybe on that, because you said promiscuity harms women more than men.
Yes.
And I was curious what you meant by that.
I think there's many layers to that question. I think physically, the infections you can get can stop you having children. That's more likely to happen in the woman than the man. If you're sexually active younger, that is devastating for the internal workings of the girl. Nobody speaks about this. When we give this, oh, go and do what you like, and allow 12-year-olds to go to the staff nurse and get condoms, and sorry, there's youngsters here. When you allow youngsters to go their own way without speaking to parents, they're damaging themselves. Without them knowing it, we're not giving good advice. So that promiscuity, it damages physically the woman more than the man, and it will have longer term effects. And spiritually and psychologically, it's not good for women. And these are studies that we can all look up ourselves in our own time, inshallah. Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Non-Muslims first, inshallah. Anybody who isn't a Muslim who really wants to have a question, please take this opportunity. We're here for you, inshallah. At the back?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
These are not questions, these are just my general observations, and these are some confusions which sometimes I may have to defend when talking to someone. So actually, I have written a bit more, so if you just listen to these. So the major chunk of confusion related to women, they are, we have a lot of confusion, and the majority of them are related to women. And whenever we encounter them, the fundamental thing is not about women, the fundamental thing is about which version of Islam you accept. There are two groups. Okay, the first group says whatever happened during the age of Prophet, we have to accept that in literal meanings. So Islam is complete, Deen is complete. The other group says we don't need to accept Islam in those literal meanings, but in generalized meanings. So, for example, at the age of Prophet, maswak was used to clean the mouth, but now we have toothbrush and some other. So the first group will say we stick to miswak, and the other groups will say we can adopt toothbrush and these kind of things. So I have like 3 or 4 questions with these observations.
Thank you very much, Barakallah Fiqh. I think you've summarized perhaps all the others from the root of literalism to sunnah to of the different madhabs. Can we answer that? Because for everybody who's not a Muslim here, that may be a bit difficult. Please, inshallah.
Okay, I raise only one question and then you can elaborate on that. I refer to one ayah of Quran, Ar-Rijaluna Qawwamuna 'ala an-Nisa. The men are over and above the women. Okay. The literal meaning Qawwamun, this is quite on focus. So the literal meaning is above and over ruler, but the generalized meaning is bread provider and some other like a person who take cares. So these are two difference of opinions even within Islam, and sometimes we have to encounter them and defend them.
I think maybe if I answer the first one, which version of Islam? There is only one version of Islam. Yeah, we need to understand that there are no versions of Islam. There may be variation of opinions of people in a specific case, but it does not mean that there are two versions of Islam. And the example you gave is really, you know, if the Prophet, peace be upon him, was here today, he may not defend the miswak, you know, because it may not be available. The miswak, the ulama say whatever you clean your teeth with is a miswak, is a toothbrush. So that is really not you know, whoever is arguing that is either out of, with all respect, ignorance, or you know, trying to dig up something in Islam. Nevertheless, I would like to say something, that Islam, the text, which is the Quran, and the Sunnah, which is the prophetic tradition, this is the text, which is a revelation, whether it is the Quran or the other one. Both are revelation, make no mistake. And also you have the context, which where you are going to transpose the text. And if the context changes, then you need really to find other solutions. So I cannot, if there is a fatwa by the way is an opinion in a specific matter, it doesn't mean anything to do with anything else, yeah? If there is an opinion about a specific matter somewhere in Riyadh or Cairo or Amman, I cannot just bring it here to London and try to follow it, because I need to understand the context, which may be different. And there are also lines in Islam that are fixed, such as the faith. God is one. We believe in Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the last prophet. These things don't change. Also, Salah is one of the fundamentals, prayer is one of the fundamentals of Islam. And if you look around, you will not see anyone who changed these things. Yeah? So, you know, using the car or using a computer or using technology really is not an issue if we understand Islam. So that is really my general answer to that. The other one, at home, Islam made the man, if you like, as the responsible person, the manager. Now, who is to say that the CTO of the company is the best? But the CTO is more able to run the company. The other people working, they are specifically better in their own areas. And Islam puts the man in the, if you continue to read the ayah, بما فضل الله به بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. They have the strength and the ability to run the home, and because they are financially responsible, as Sister Lauren explained earlier. So that responsibility gives the man these two items, gives the man the responsibility on the home, and he is the manager. Now, it doesn't mean that he cannot, if you like, give the wife some of these responsibilities. To say, yeah, you look after that, if she wants to take them. If that is part of his responsibility. Some men can stay at home, and the woman works. If that is an agreement, no one says this is haram. It is not a haram arrangement. It does not make the woman, in this case, But in some cases, for example, a lot of us, socially, we are, as men, we are failures. If it wasn't for the woman, we will not know anyone. She arranges the meetings, we go for trips and so on. She is good at that, and in many areas, the woman is doing that. So let us not, it is not to be ashamed of. You have to set a line in Islam, so as things don't go all over the place. And then a woman one day says, I am the boss, and the other day says, no, I am the boss. Islam says, look, you have the financial responsibility. As a man, you go out, you have the strength to meet others and so on. You are the responsible person for the home, and you are financially responsible. Now, how you manage that, then that is another matter. It is nothing really. I'm sure, sister, do you want to add to that?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Sure. Barakallahu Feek, Sheikh. There's something I want us to consider here, and it's a story. Well, one day Sheikh was sitting, and a student of knowledge came and asked him a question and said, "Ya Sheikh, can I come and sit with you? I want to learn from you." He said, "Take a seat beside me and watch what happens today with some of the questions that are raised." So the first man that comes to see the Sheikh says, "Ya Sheikh, may I smoke a cigarette during my prayer? May I smoke a cigarette when I'm praying?" The Sheikh looks at him and says, "No, you may not smoke during your prayer." He says, "Thank you very much, Sheikh," and he goes. Half an hour later, another young man comes and he says, "Ya Sheikh, please tell me, may I smoke during my prayer?" The Sheikh looks at him closely and says, "Yes, you may smoke during your prayer." And the man goes away. The student of knowledge turns to the Sheikh and says, "With due respect, O learned scholar, can I ask you how it is possible to have the same question answered so differently?" And the Sheikh explained, "The first man who came to see me has been Muslim for many years. If he begins to smoke during his prayer, he's leaving respect for God and he's leaving respect for the prayer. So no, he must never do that. The second man who came has just accepted Islam and he's never made a prayer. If I put a condition, don't even come to prayer without your smoking, it may stop him making the prayer at all. And the most important thing in this is that he begins to make his prayer." Now within Islamic jurisprudence and understanding, and I say this only because we have a sheikh with us who can correct me, it is possible to live in all societies at all times in a confident and comfortable way. We just have to understand how to do it. And Allah knows best. And what I found as somebody new to Islam is that it is possible and it is beautiful. And it can change your whole life around and your concept of what it is to live in this reality. It reminds us that we are first and foremost spiritual beings. So whilst we might want to here combat each other, a man, woman, if she earns 25 grand and I earn 30 and she's not doing enough washing up and ya sheikh, actually Islam is a faith. It believes in the divine and we seek God's guidance in all things, and that means loving one another and giving each other our rights. Alhamdulillah. I hope inshallah that was okay. Did I say anything incorrect? Okay. Another question, inshallah.
Okay. Please keep our questions short. We know like 3-4 speeches before a question. And while answering the question, if you can signal to me like who wants to ask the next question, I can come around and signal for you.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you both the speakers for nice speeches. I want to ask a question regarding the tafsir of these two verses. First, the verse which someone recited, الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض. What is the meaning of this قوامون? It's an Arabic word. I'm not an Arab, I don't know. Sheikh is here. The other verse that says that وَلِلْرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. So, and I don't know if the speakers will also relate this to the issue of having two captains in a ship. I don't know. Do you like see a house like two captains in a ship? Like, do you see a house like a ship? If it is like that, we see that there may be danger if everyone will take control, everyone will take charge.
I think I answered that question, and I said that the man is responsible, he is in charge. I did say that. And I said then it is up to the man to divide the work the way he sees fit. Any other question, please?
I was just interested, just turning around, we talked a lot about women, and I guess that's probably, as a non-Muslim, one of the preconceptions that I definitely hear in a non-Muslim society is around, women being oppressed, and that's not what I hear at all tonight. And I suppose my version of equality is also that, men and women are equal but different. And I'm a psychologist, and sometimes see people, obviously, who have mental health problems and some kind of religion. And I suppose for me, it's about men who end up with some kind of mental health difficulty or something that stops them being able to fulfill the kind of role that they would want to, or the Quran would suggest that they should, like providing financially. And it's always difficult, I suppose, without their roles. We talked about women, if they don't have some of the roles, what happens for them, but flipping that on its head and thinking about men, and if they can't do some of those things, what would that mean for them?
I think that's really interesting. Are you saying that you may have seen some Muslim men who are struggling psychologically because they don't have jobs and therefore they can't provide? Is that a trigger for something else?
Yes.
Trigger for depression?
Something like that, yeah.
That's really interesting. Thank you. What's your name? Lizzie, thank you. So Lizzie's a psychologist, so she's looking at this from how behaviours and learning and faith can affect us in our mental behaviours and our emotional capacity. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, about 10 years ago, I was working at the Daily Mail for You magazine, and I was going to write an article about being the breadwinner in my relationship at that time. My husband was a very manly man, but because I just had this luck and blessing in my work, I was earning about 8 times what he was earning. It was totally catastrophic. We went from loving each other to tearing each other apart, and he became very, very depressed, and I know that at the core of it, there's always other things going on. It was definitely this role reversal. So I went into the Daily Mail, New magazine, and I said, how about writing an article about this? I think it's really new and interesting. And the editor took me into where all the women writers were, because it was You magazine, and it's mostly features, which is dominated by women writers on the whole. She said, look at all these women out here. She said, which one of these women do you think doesn't earn the most than the men? I said, I don't know, what proportion? She said, about 70%. And we're all struggling with it. She didn't commission the piece, not because it wasn't valid, but because she found it was so normal. Normal that, yes, thanks be to God, women have success when we take our careers and we do well, and catastrophic in that men struggle with this change in roles. So I'm not sure what response you wanted to that, but I think it's been proven to have a significant impact if the man doesn't have that capacity to care for his loved ones.
Okay, well, we'll take 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll close it.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters and people from other religion. Thanks for turning up and showing your interest on this. Thanks to the speakers as well. Well, now my question is, like, there is one hadith, it says that anything bad for your health is haram. So, and there is one thing which specifies that wine or alcohol is haram. So, like, there was one person asking me that is smoking haram, like, can you specify it in the haram category? Because sometimes I feel like smoking, but I can't, just for that reason. My second question is not actually a question, it's like more of an opinion. I had one atheist sitting next to me in my flight. I was very lucky to catch him. he was saying that I don't believe in Allah, you know, these are all bullshit and this and that. And when there was some turbulence, the plane was shaking, that atheist was saying, Allah, Allah, Allah. He started like this. And saying this, instead of praying, I just started laughing. That man was wrong. You're saying that Allah doesn't exist, now you're saying it exists. And he's like, shut up, pray man, pray. Say Allah, what's wrong, man? And then like I just had this confusion on this thing. Alright, I hope you answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, brother, especially for your really nice thanking of everybody who's here. I think the first question is off topic, but I'm sure the Sheikh will speak to you personally about it, about smoking, because we're talking about male and female relations here today, so I won't take us too far off topic. And just to end perhaps with the fact that one of the things that we do as human beings, and we're all equal in faith, and we all wonder where we're going to go when we die. And we all wonder what it's all about. And we all wake up some mornings thinking, why am I here today? And you'll find that the strongest atheists that you know, if something goes well for them, they'll go, yes! And look up and put their hands up like this. And when we have catastrophes, whether in a believing state or in an unbelieving state, we'll say, why? And I once said to an atheist friend of mine, who are you talking to? Why are you saying why? I don't know, it's just something I do. The heart is drawn to looking at something greater than us. And I hope, inshallah, each one of us here is guided to find the true and the best path. And I thank you all for coming. I will let the Sheikh round up. Jazakallah khair to the Muslims, the non-Muslims, the believers, and everybody who came here tonight. I hope we've all benefited, and I've benefited from you. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, and Sheikh, please. No, please, just give us a dua, a little prayer to finish. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Lauren. It was a pleasure having you here tonight. Thank you very much for your attendance. I think I would say it is a healthy sign that Islam is being questioned. I don't believe that if Islam and the Muslims were so insignificant, people will just ignore them. But I believe Islam is playing a huge role in modern life, whether it be here in this country or in Europe or across the globe. Sometimes it is portrayed in one way, sometimes it's portrayed in another. So I believe that it is indeed healthy that people say, why is that, why is this? There is a degree of closeness to Islam and a degree of care that people think that they want to know the answers. And I think it is really sticking out from the ground. I mean, that beautiful example of hijab, crossing the road and asking, this is one way of attracting people into Islam. And I think sisters are really blessed with that. We may look, I remember I used to travel to Portugal and many other, particularly Portugal, and people used to speak to me in Portuguese thinking that I'm 100% Portuguese. They could not believe that I was anyone different. So, I could be mistaken for anybody, but if I was wearing hijab, I know, then people would know that at least I'm a Muslim. So, brothers and sisters, do not shy away from being a Muslim. Do not refrain from answering the questions. Do not go away from learning your Islam. And also people who are, my guests who are not Muslims, please do ask their questions. Do ask their questions. It is your right to know. And as long as it is done in a nice way, I think everyone is going to be happy. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you very much for our scholars.